44 dive, we rollin'. What's up, unit? Salute. Welcome back to the channel, Amped Up with BC, Thursday, January 16, 2025. Today's Amped Up will be AEW centric. We will be focusing on AEW Dynamite for 1:15:25. BC was able to catch this show in its entirety, basically anyway, in totality. So you're going to get my full throttle recap, results, review, amplified thoughts on this show that was dubbed Maximum Carnage from Tony Khan. That's what he was calling this event last night. So we will talk about what type of product Tony Khan delivered. Is it doom and gloom Dynamite? Is AEW, can it just not be saved? Because that's what you're hearing in the community, right? It's the worst thing in the history of pro wrestling, AEW right now. Is it though? Is it good? I can't go as far to say this is good, no. But is it the worst thing I've ever seen in pro wrestling? No. So some of the narratives, some of the things that's out there about AEW, I've been able to catch Dynamite several times over the last couple months. It needs so much improvement, so much work. But some of the things you hear is not really good. It's just so left field with a hockey stick. So that's why I'm really glad that I can carve out the time and cut these reviews, because we can bring it back to focus. It's not just about clicks or views or narratives and agendas. We can literally take this show that most of us, this show and this company, we want to see it succeed, because when these big companies succeed, it rises all tides. So we want to see WWE succeed, AEW, the local bingo hall. Right? We want to see those bingo halls packed to capacity with 50 people in there. Right? It's rises all tides. So that's what we do in these reviews, man. We are going to talk honestly what is working and what is not just what we like and don't like, right? We can all like a certain wrestler and not like another wrestler. That doesn't get us anywhere. We can like a story or not like a story. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what is working storyline-wise, what is working character-wise, who is being pushed that shouldn't be, and who should be pushed that's not even on TV. Those are the things I want to tackle. That's why I'm glad I'm able to do this AEW recap, review, my thoughts on this show from last night. The biggest story we're going to talk about is Jeffrey Jarrett and MJF, Maxwell Jacob Freeman. That's the biggest headline. A lot of heat on MJF, but it's not what you're thinking. Right? I know a lot of you guys, you don't watch these shows, you watch BC's review, and I appreciate that. And if I praise it, you'll go back and catch it, and if I don't, you say, thanks BC for saving me 2 hours. Or if it's WWE, 3 hours most of the time. But so if you did not see this show, there was a near 15-minute segment, back and forth promo with Jeffrey Jarrett at 58 years old-ish, and MJF. 15 minutes, guys. They're giving Jeff Jarrett a full 15-minute segment. I think the women in totality got less than that for the whole show. I think they maybe got 14. Jeff Jarrett, 2025, a full segment. A lot of people, I'm just saying, can look at that and say that's why AEW is not where it should be. That's why a lot of fans have turned away. Right? A lot of people were saying WWE was pushing all these old-timers and AEW was going to be different in that aspect. Once in a while, if you have somebody like Sting, okay, I can even give you a pass with Dustin Rhodes. Jeffrey Jarrett getting all of this TV time is really off-putting to many. But it was the biggest headline from last night, but it was because of Maxwell. That shouldn't be stunning, right? That's not a shocking headline. Maxwell grabs the night with what he said. But it's why people are upset with Maxwell. And who? He said so many things, and he said them so that he could ruffle up the audience, right? Get everybody buzzing and talking the next day. The audience, the fans, talking about Owen Hart or Karen Jarrett in the balls line, right? That's supposed to be what everybody is talking about the next day. And how dare MJF say these things? How dare he say that and bring Owen Hart's name into it? But that's not what happened. Fans were okay with all of that. They're like, yeah, that's MJF being MJF. It's the boys in the locker room. It's the people backstage in AEW that were upset with what Maxwell said last night. And it had nothing to do with the Owen Hart line or the Balls line or anything else. It was one line in particular that ended up becoming polarizing. And when it was said live on air, BC just passed over it. I was like, oh, that's a good line. I never thought that would be a detrimental thing to AEW. But that's the report that BC was getting immediately after. And Meltzy pretty much confirmed that. Now, you could say Meltzy is not always accurate. That would be accurate. But one thing Meltzy does have is people backstage in AEW. No more so highly profiled than the executive vice president's Young Bucks. So when Meltzy says he's hearing something backstage in AEW, that's where you could actually believe the dude. And again, it did back up what I was hearing. And the report is that a lot of people backstage in AEW not happy at all with this one line that MJF said last night. Again, in real time, I saw no problem with it. I actually thought there was a lot of truth to it. But I'll give you what Meltzy was hearing. I'll give you his exact quote on why people were not pleased. And you guys make the decision. Was it no harm, no foul? You thought it was funny or at least truthful? Or should it not have been said, especially right now with the current state that AEW is in? You guys decide. We will talk about it. That's going to be the biggest part of this review. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I want to get right into it. No opening signature, nothing like that. Before I do, I just want to give you guys the NXT rating that did just come in right before we started recording. So, or at least I received it right before that red light went on. So the NXT rating for this week, it is down. Not huge, that's the good news, but it is down from 798 to 779. Now, we've seen this so many times in the past where, this is where it starts, right? And then next week, it'll be down 40 to 60, which would place them at about 719. And then what? In 2 weeks, are you back in the 600s? They have to somehow hold the ship steady. You're not going to have The Rock going forward. You're not going to have a fancy title called New Year's Evil. You're going to have to rest on the talent and the stories that you are telling. And you cannot start going backwards now already. So NXT pulls 779. So you were hoping they could get momentum with what happened last week and almost scoring 800,000 viewers, but that did not happen. So they are going backwards slightly, but still the wrong way. I did put up a review on NXT. I don't always get to do that. Yesterday, guys, check that upload if you haven't already. I know a lot of you guys already have, and I appreciate that big time. And we talk the Corey Graves situation in great detail. So you're definitely going to want to catch that upload. That's yesterday's upload. But we talk NXT, and I tell you guys why they probably dipped as well. The finish of the night was just weird. One of my favorites in the business, Roxy, getting interrupted by Bayley. Bayley coming to all the shows this week. SmackDown, she shows up on Raw for a Rhea segment to beat up another SmackDown star, Nia Jax, so it made no sense. Rhea didn't even get a word in once Bayley and Nia started fighting. And then all of a sudden, Bayley just shows up on NXT, and it was so misplaced. Roxy is like half the size of her, so it doesn't even make Roxy look legit, and we know how good Roxy is. It was just so random. And then there was timing issues because Bayley just kind of sat on the promo too long. So then when she got the 10-second countdown from production that sits right outside the ring, camera side, and they're shouting 10 seconds, Bayley had to rush her lines. If you guys saw the show, you know what I'm talking about. And she rushed it, and that was Roxy's cue to smack her, and then Bayley had to quickly take her down. And before Bayley could even get a punch in, we had to go off the air. CW took it off. So, I mean, it was just botched from top to bottom. It was just a weird segment. It's not the best suit for Roxy for sure. And, you know, just everything about that, it just leaves a bad taste, and you kind of already know coming out of it, this rating is going to start going backwards if we're just doing random stuff like this. Today's upload, AEW Dynamite Maximum Carnage, I believe is what it was dubbed, right? I hope I'm getting that right. I just called it Dynamite the whole night. That's a maximum. Every week has a special themed name, like that's going to bring in a new audience, right? Are you catching Dynamite this week? No, but it's called Maximum Carnage. Oh, then yeah, of course I am. Why didn't you tell me that? I didn't know they gave it a fancy name. So Kenny Omega is going to start this show, guys. Kenny Omega returns to the ring. He defeats Brian Cage. The Don Callis family takes out Omega and Will Ospreay. That was coming to the aid of Omega. But the Callis family is able to overtake the faces. Nothing really of substance here. This was always about Kenny Omega, and that's what Tony Khan made it about afterwards, saluting Kenny Omega, welcoming him back after that match and after Dynamite went off the air. And it was about Kenny Omega, right? Finding his footing again, continuing this story, not just with Callises, but more so, the more interesting thing than the heels and the Callis family is the dynamic with Omega and Ospreay. So the best part of this was actually after the beatdown, after the match, and they get beat down, and Omega is really selling the beatdown, and he's looking at Ospreay, who's also selling this nicely. But just the look on Omega, he's looking at Ospreay, then he looks at the Callis family who's up the aisleway, and then he looks back at Ospreay and he's trying to comprehend how they just got their asses whooped. Like, these are two of the best wrestlers in the world, right? Ospreay and himself. That's what he's thinking, right? The hamster's going in upstairs. It's spinning. And I just love how he kept looking back and forth at Ospreay, and it's like, and then there's this frustration, like, damn, what do we got to do? Might be a little bit more tougher than I originally thought, even with Ospreay by my side. Or is Ospreay even the right piece of the puzzle to get the job done against the Callis family? I don't know. These are the questions that I start asking because you can invest in the story when the characters are telling it correctly. So I'm not saying this is the most amazing story right now in pro wrestling or even AEW, but if you're going to tell it like that, I thought Omega was phenomenal. I would have started out with more of a captivating cliffhanger-ish opening, right? Not even in the ring, but set something up really big, keep going back to it throughout the night, and then culminate it at the finish. But wrestling shows rarely do that anymore, man. And that's what a good TV show does. You start with something, it's your biggest storyline, and you keep going back to it. But they just wanted to put this emphasis on Kenny Omega's return. No harm, no foul. Ricochet. A promo with Ricochet was up next, taking in the boos as if he's like the AEW version of Dominic Mysterio. Not even in the same league, bruh. Boo-wise, reception-wise. Even if WWE isn't piping in those boos, which a lot of times they are, but they don't even need to. Dominic gets those pretty authentically. But I will say this, Ricochet was getting booed pretty good. I mean, it's a much smaller crowd. This was a tiny little... I don't know. You can't even call it arena. What do you call it? Bigger than a bingo hole. I don't even know what you call these things, man. But it was a nice little, a little bigger than a studio. And Ricochet's getting booed pretty good. Prince Nana. I just love saying that, man. He comes dancing with a steel chair from behind, and he wabakas. Ricochet in the back with that steel chair. Ricochet still had the golden scissors in his little pencil pocket of his suit jacket. He's got the scissors. I mean, this dude just looks like a substitute teacher every time I see him. Because, he's a tiny human. And he puts a suit on, and he's got his glasses, and now he's got scissors out of his pencil pocket. Right? He looks like a nerdy substitute teacher. I can't get over that. It's really funny. But Nana comes in and he whacks him with the chair and then he starts dancing. So what's the Nana dance, right? Is that almost like the Trump dance? Right? It's a little almost the same, right? Or the fists go more higher up. I think the Trump dance is more this way, right? More left to right. I think Prince Nana is more up. I feel, man, the unit that doesn't watch these shows and they just listen to BC's reviews are probably like, what is BC talking about? And what is a Prince Nana? But that's what happened. And then Swerve came out. And Ricochet just ran, so Swerve kind of chases him off. Now, this place was so small that they were wrestling in, this venue. I don't know, again, what exactly you call this. I can't think of it right now, and I don't want to hold up the review. but it was so small that they went through the crowd a little bit. They went through an exit door. Normally, like in an arena or something, the exit door leads to like more like big corridors, like hallways, right? A backstage area. Guys, this door led right outside. It's like snowing out. It led right to the street. I thought it was hilarious because I'm like, they're going to fight in the street. This is everything I wanted from WWE's street fight on Monday night, Damian versus Finn Balor, and we never took it to the street. They called it a street fight. It was only no DQ, no count out. So that's false advertisement. So I thought, man, Swerve and Ricochet were going to fill that craving, right? Go out into the street, start battling. But instead, Rico just ran and Swerve was like, dude, too cold for me. No way. Too cold, Scorpio. And he went right back to the ring, and that was the segment. I don't think we saw Rico again that night. So that sucks. They could have capitalized, go out into the snow and start battling, right? But they used to do that, man. The old school 24/7 championship during the Attitude Era, I mean, you would go out in snowstorms and like Crash Holly would be battling, I don't know, Sparkplug Holly. I don't know, who would he be battling? I forgot who was around back then now, man. For the 24/7 division anyway. But they would go out into the snowstorms and start battling it out. And it'd just be like, yeah, man, forklifts coming. It's a snowstorm. You see this forklift barreling toward you. A plow would come around the corner. I'm like, dude, this is great. But they just didn't battle. They didn't battle last night in the street, and that was the segment. So the substitute teacher got a chair from Prince Nana. Swerve chases out Rico, and I believe in 3 weeks, Tony Khan said, that's when you're going to get your matchup. So Swerve versus Rico. We'll see. I don't know. Not the worst segment, but not the best. Then we had the Hurt Syndicate. The return of MVP in action. I think MVP said it was like 2.5 years since he laced up the boots. So I thought it was pretty cool to see Hurt Syndicate together as a unit wrestling, fully unified. Hurt Syndicate defeated Mark Briscoe and Private Party. Syndicate take this match in less than 10 minutes with Shelton taking the ultimate pin. So Shelton takes the W for his team. I say the same thing every week, but it's the only thing I can say because it's the most truthful. I love how they're booking the Syndicate to be powerful. They're collecting W's. They're doing it in a reasonable amount of time. It's not taking them too long. They're looking dominant. That's all the good news. The bad news, or at least what needs to be fixed, is they need more relevance. They need to now captivate the attention of the audience, right? There needs to be a reason to care about Syndicate. A badass storyline has to be ignited. I've said this for weeks. Here we are weeks later, and I'm still saying the same thing. You have to ignite a storyline with the Syndicate, or else you're just going to rack up W's for zero reason. You're going to squash people in the meantime. Fans are not going to care about it, and it's all for naught. I say this example so many times. AJ Styles, one of his last long runs, he was collecting W after W. It didn't seem that way, though, because he was just not booked correctly. He was not involved in anything special. So he's racking up all these W's. He's defeating all of these top talents. Didn't lead to anything. Nobody cared. And that's what you don't want to see with these type of situations. So I'm hoping that soon, as in yesterday, we get a storyline ignited, sparked for the Hurt Syndicate. Then we went into the big part of the night, because this was going to be the headlines the next day. Here we are, and probably throughout the week. This was MJF and Jeffrey Jarrett's promo back and forth. Again, nearly 15 minutes in length. Jeff Jarrett in 2025 getting nearly 15 minutes. I made reference to this in the cold open. The women in totality, I believe, didn't even get 14. So that's an issue, right? And when this is your biggest storyline, because that's the biggest headlines right now, that's the one that was given the most time on the stick. When that's the case and Jeff Jarrett is your biggest storyline, I think that's a major red flag for a lot of AEW fans, not just pro wrestling fans or WWE fans that are checking in on everything. That's a red flag, man. So MJF did everything he could to raise, I should say, the interest in this feud. MJF did everything. Jeff Jarrett tried as well. He tried to hang with MJF, but MJF is just Michael Jordan on the stick. That's what he is, man. MJF at this juncture, and he has been, is the Michael Jordan on the stick. And Jarrett just can't hang, and that's where the deficit was. MJF was just rocking him with all these one-liners. MJF talking about how when he's done with him, he's just going to take Karen Angle as well. But don't worry, you know, he's not just the scumbag. He's going to give Jeff Jarrett back Karen Angle, and Jeff Jarrett will know what it's like to I forgot what he said, like taste the first one to taste a generational talent and an Olympic gold medalist's balls, because she used to date Kurt Angle, and he's talking about spending a night with her, and then he's going to return her back, and now I'm not saying that again. So anyway, that was the big, right? That's one of the lines that I'm sure MJF thought was going to be talked about the next day, and everyone's like, wow, that's low. And then he brought up Owen Hart and said, just because you're good buddies with Owen Hart, you think you get all this status wherever you go. Or mentioned Owen a couple of times, right? That's supposed to be the dagger too the next day. Everybody's talking about how just shame, right? Shame on MJF. How dare you bring Owen's Hart? That's going too far. That's too low, dude. That's what they were hoping for. The line that got the most attention, and not even from fans, from those backstage in AEW, was a line that he said, and let me give you an exact quote. So I want to make sure I'm giving you guys an exact quote. Give me one sec. All right, so here we go. This is what MJF is telling Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett is the last thing you see before your favorite wrestling company dies. That's when he said it. I was like, damn. I mean, unfortunately, and whether it's Jeff's fault or not, I hear you, right? Like the WCW thing, it was already in rough shape. Putting Jeff Jarrett as the guy with the title was not the answer, and we found that out. But when he said that, right, Jeff Jarrett is the last thing you see before your favorite wrestling company dies. I was like, unfortunately, that's true. I mean, he couldn't do anything with TNA, and he kept being the guy. WCW used him as the last resort to try to up everything, and it totally fell on its face. Global Force, GFW, never got off the ground. And when you evolve it around Jeffrey Jarrett, I think a lot of people could have told you that. So now he's in AEW, and I took it to where MJF is trying to say, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen, right? If I got to push out the pasture, buddy, your 58-year-old ass, then that's what's going to happen. But I have built this company brick by brick. That's how I kind of took it, right? Like, you're the face that everyone sees before the company dies. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. Apparently, those backstage took it to the point of, dude, what are you trying to say? Like, that's the final nail in AEW's coffin? Because that's what I was hearing immediately after, but it's Meltzer confirmed this immediately as well. And again, the one thing that Meltzer will be accurate on is what he's hearing backstage, because he does have people back there, again, high profile, like the executive vice presidents, the Young Bucks. They're all in cahoots. And Meltzer said the following, guys. This is a quote. Meltzy says on that line, I heard from many people tonight about that line. I don't know if that line should have been okayed. It bothered enough people to where I know it probably was not the greatest idea. There's this narrative out there that AEW is at death's door, so the last thing I do on TV is reinforce there may be any truth to that. It wasn't necessary, and the line wasn't needed. So again, that line, I don't know if that line should have been okayed. It bothered enough people to where I know it wasn't the greatest idea. And again, what I was hearing immediately after, before I even tapped into the Meltzer quote, was that people backstage not happy. And I even got the hand-to-head emoji to the report that I got. But even when I got my initial report, I was like, for what? That's not even, I didn't think that was a big deal. He's just he's saying like Jeff Jarrett thinks he's this hotshot main eventer and MJF is bringing him down to size, saying, dude, every time you tried to lead a company died afterwards. I didn't make and this is just BC, maybe you guys did, like some backstage in AEW. I didn't make the correlation. I did not put the two together. I didn't even think, oh man, that's not good. That just made AEW look bad. I didn't even think that way until I got that report from my person. And then all of a sudden Meltzy backs it up about a half an hour later. And I'm like, whoa, all right. Or whenever I saw that, and I'm like, wow, that's a thing. Like, how can you be upset? To me, it sounds like you're just finding reason, or I'm talking about the talent. There must be some talent that is now trying to find reasons to kind of pick at MJF. And maybe they think he, even if it's just mentally, is already 1 foot out the door to WWE the second he gets a chance. So maybe they're just trying to protect themselves. I don't know. But this feels like nitpicking. If you're the boys backstage and you have a problem with what MJF said in that line, dude, it's what we've been talking about. BC has been talking about it on weeks. Is Jeff Jarrett the guy you want in these scenarios? Because every time he's in a top spot, nobody cares about it, and the company suffers from it. So he's just saying what a lot of the fans were saying. I'm not trying to defend MJF. He doesn't need me to do such, but I just don't see how this was an issue. It's wild how everything he gave so much ammo last night for the audience to be enraged with the next day and going forward. And instead, the audience was totally okay. They're like, that's MJF being MJF. He rocked the mic. But it's the boys backstage that had an issue with it. It's just wild to me that that's even a thing. So interested to see how you guys feel about that, man. Jeff Jarrett is the last thing you see before your favorite wrestling company dies. Do you think that just made AEW look really bad, or no harm, no foul, he's just dropping some truth? And it adds to the story, because if Toni wants Jarrett in this feud, and MJF, you can't make MJF suffer from it. A lot of fans are not happy with Jarrett getting this airtime or this feud. So MJF has to sell this very real, right? It has to be authentic. So you have to do these type of lines, I feel. I don't know, man. I could keep going on and on. It was wild to think that was the most polarizing line. But I want to say this was a really good back and forth because it was given a lot of time. MJF had a lot of zingers. But when Jarrett tried to zing back, he was just so much stalling and really trying to think about what he was saying. It was just off. And you could just tell, like, he just couldn't hang. Even when he said, I was MJF before you were MJF. Because Jarrett used to be a heel that had the gift to gab a little bit more quicker, sharper. But even at Jeff Jarrett's peak as a heel, he was nowhere near MJF on the stick. So I couldn't even buy into that. I don't know. It's still weird to me, MJF and Jeff Jarrett in a feud that they have. It's a weird decision by Tony Khan. It's a weird decision to have Jeff Jarrett as one of the main guys getting the most airtime on your 2-hour show when your company desperately needs a lifeline. It's so odd, but this is what we're getting. And now it looks like even the backstage, man, AEW talent is not happy. Maybe he meant execs. I mean, I didn't get I didn't get confirmation on if it was like talent or suits and ties, and Melty doesn't really mention it either. So it could have been suits and ties, maybe even Tony Khan. We'll try to get a follow-up for you guys. But we'll leave it at that until I do get a follow-up, because I don't want to run in circles with this. I want to keep going. I think it was... So it was Hook defeating Christian Cage next. That was via DQ. Chris Sabian, Kip Sabian, Chris Sabian. Yeah, I mean, that's the brother. Kip and Chris. Sabian and Nick Wayne interfere. Samoa Joe returns. It was so good to hear his music and to see Joe back. He's been gone for months. Not just injury, right? I mean, he had some nagging injuries, but I think he was filming. So Samoa Joe was back. And he clears house. It was just so good to see Joe. And I'm like, that's what this company needs. Like that type of amplification, right? Like literally when I heard his music and I saw him come out, I'm like, yup, that's it. More of that. And I think they'll start to get back on the right track. Samoa Joe, that was huge. And it's just what they needed. I just felt like they need that. Things like that. And guys like that. Toni Storm wins the Women's Casino Gauntlet matchup, pinning. I saw Julia in my notes, and I'm like, wait, the NXT champion was in this? I don't remember that. I don't remember putting that in my notes. Julia Hart, for some reason, I put a G down in these notes, right? This Julia is a J, I believe. I should not have put the G. Anyway, Julia Hart was pinned by Toni Storm. So Toni Storm has been on this woe is me tour lately. I'm just not good enough. I'm losing. And she gets this big W, and she's shocked. Mariah May's on commentary, and they set that match up. So no harm, no foul. I think we kind of saw where this was headed. I wish it was better than this. Like Julia Hart put some. Did she put the mist in? Julia Hart was in control, and then Toni Storm takes somebody out and then rolls up Julia Hart, I believe. Just a little, correct? Did I put it in my notes? Yeah, it was a fruit roll-up. I literally put that in my notes. Fruit roll-up. She just rolls up Julia Hart. Didn't knock her out. Didn't stun her with a punch. Julia Hart is in full command with somebody else. I forgot who it was. Maybe Jamie Hayter, because they have their feud going on. So maybe it was Jamie Hayter. And she's in full control. And then Toni Storm just rolls her up. And Julia's like, I can't get out of this. So I didn't like the way that it was done. I don't mind the decision, obviously. I just wait. You like that. That's just as important as the call itself. How you do it. The main event was Mox versus Powerhouse Hobbs for the title. I'm surprised people were calling for Powerhouse to get this championship. He's not there, guys. He's just not. That's the truth. I understand if you wanted that and if you would have liked that to happen. Much respect, much love, much appreciation to your thought process and to what you would have liked. Honestly, I mean that. But it doesn't mean it's the right decision. We talked about it, I think it was last week in the review. If not, it was the week before, but I think it was last week when Powerhouse Hobbs came out for a save for the faces and to no reaction. The music hit, no reaction. When the music stopped, it was even quieter. And it was at that moment I said, it's not the time. You can't throw a title on everybody. I like Powerhouse. I hope the best for him. I hope continuously good booking for him, and we'll see if he can get to that next level. But reaction-wise, he's not there. And if you think a title being thrown on him will get him there, that's not the way to do business. The title is not going to make the dude in the gal, or it shouldn't. The dude is going to make the dude or the gal is going to make the title more relevant, more prestigious. It was just wild. People are like, Powerhouse has to win the title tonight. And what? I ask. What are you going to do next? Come out to crickets? And when you're trying to get an audience, you go, that's the world champion. Why is nobody making noise? It's complicated, but it's the right decision because Mox was doing nothing with it. No. Build up Powerhouse Hobbs. If you want him to get a title in the future, that's totally fine. Last night was not the time to do it. Marina Shafir decks Hobbs with the briefcase, then Mox's DDT, and then a choke submission. The ref calls the match due to pass out. Powerhouse Hobbs is down and out. I would say looking up at the lights, but dude, lights were on maybe, but nobody was home. Powerhouse was done and out. Mox, ultimate victory, dude. Post-match, the Riders break Hobbs' ankle via a steel chair. And then Cope, Dax, and Cash, those three names, Cope, Dax, and Cash. Sounds like the title to a really bad television show. They all come out for the save, but just a bit late. The numbers game was already into play from the beginning. From the very beginning, before the bell rang, the numbers game with Claudio and then Wheeler running out and Marina there. The numbers game was already there. Then it kind of cost Hobbs, not kind of, briefcase to the dome piece. Yeah, that cost him. Wheeler in the middle of the match. So during the match, the numbers game is costing him. The finish, it cost him. And then after the match, it cost him his ankle. They break his ankle. And only then the faces decide to leave catering, put the triple-layered moose cake down. And only then they decided to come out and help Powerhouse when he already lost his title match and opportunity and already lost one of his ankles. but now we'll come out. And they were out there for like 10 seconds before the show went off the air. So I don't think that's how you used Cope and FTR. That was questionable. That was a really odd, and I will go as far to say just a bad finish. I like Mox winning. That's the right call. I don't mind the post-match beating and breaking of the ankle of Hobbs. But the weird face running at... BC, what would you have done then? Amplify truth, as always? You leave the faces out then. If they're only going to run out there for 10 seconds, guys, then just leave them in the back. Sell the injury. Damn, did you see what the Riders did to Hobbs? And you let that be the final visual. You play on it. You fade to black. Whether people like the Death Riders or not, they just caused destruction. Not only did they defeat Hobbs, keep the title in that briefcase. I think it's hilarious they keep the title in the briefcase. And then on top of that, they break the dude's ankle. The title victory wasn't good enough. You're gonna be powerhouse hobbles, right? Because you're gonna be hobbling all around. You'll be powerhouse Hobbs, all right. Powerhouse hobbles. That's it. And then you fade to black, man. You don't even need the faces. They did nothing. All of that work. Mox wins. They break the ankle. They look badass, and then they run away once the faces come out for 10 seconds. You don't need it. Tony Khan has to realize you can sit on things. You don't have to bring out the cavalry every single time. And if you want Edge and FTR on the show, think of a better way to do that. Take 5 minutes that Jeff Jarrett is getting and put that to Cope, Dax, and Cash. That's what I got for you guys. That is your AEW 115-25 review. Amplified style. That's as honest as you're going to get. I pride myself on not just stomping this company because they're down. I always want to keep giving them a chance, and when they're on and I'm able to catch it, I want to watch it, and I want to do notes on it, and I want to review it. I want to see where are they succeeding in and play your strengths, and where are they unfortunately failing in, and you want to hide your weaknesses. Play to your strengths, hide your weaknesses. Don't do what you shouldn't be doing and do more of what you should be. And hopefully this review helped with that, as I try to do with WWE and every company that I go over and do my due diligence and take the time to talk about. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was a knowledgeable and entertaining review for you. And hopefully that locker room, that company will continue to just make strides to get better. That's what you have to do. I'm looking forward to one of my favorite dudes in the industry, Christopher Daniels, having his Texas death match with Hangman. I think that's Collision Saturday. I doubt I'm going to be able to catch that whole show, but I do want to catch Christopher Daniels, absolutely. One of my favorite dudes, and I'm really looking forward to what they do in that Texas death match. So things to look forward to for sure. Like I said, Corey Graves, that whole situation, I talk in great length about that yesterday's upload. Check it out. Most of you guys, a lot of you guys already did. I appreciate that support. And a lot more content coming up this week, possibly even later today. There's a possibility you're going to get a second dose of amplification. So lock on the channel, subscribe, notified, all the good stuff. There's a good chance you guys will get another one. Smash that up, help out the algorithm. Channel members, you guys are top tier, man, the utmost of appreciation. Until next time, and there will be that next time, 44 Dive, that's a wrap. BC in the unit saying, check you, salute.